On today's show, Glass takes the top spot at the box office. Netflix may be into the MPAA, and let's talk about the nominations being in. Finally, the Oscars give us some controversy. Movie Talk starts right now. Of course, I'm being facetious, as the Oscars have given us whole lots of controversy this year already, and now we finally have some movies and awards to talk about. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Collider Movie Talk. I am merely Mark Ellis. That is Perri Nemiroff. That is Jeffrey Sneider. And man, do we have a whole lot of news stories to get to. A bevy of goodness and just the panelists to talk it over with. Our first story is about Netflix and the MPAA. Now, we're going to get into all the Oscar talk. Sure, we got that. We got the box office. But this is a big story because Netflix is looking to get into the Motion Picture Association of America. What does that mean? Well, basically it means that now Netflix would have the same copyright and same rating system that major motion pictures do when they get released in theaters. Why is that significant? Because this means that Netflix is no longer just a player in the industry, but they are one of the major studios in the industry. Perri Nemiroff, now all of a sudden we could have Netflix movies with ratings. What does that bring? What does the copyright issue bring? More importantly, what does this signify to you about where Netflix is heading?
It's happening. It is time for Netflix to basically become a major Hollywood studio, as though it wasn't already pumping out enough major original content. Between this news being announced today and also the fact that it scored so many Oscar nominations, and there's a pretty good chance that come the end of February, we're going to have a Netflix original film that is a Best Picture winner. I know we might have differing opinions on what is the frontrunner at this point, but Roma is really cleaning up this award season. And then on top of that, now that I'm thinking about it, Ballad of Buster Scruggs snuck up in so many different categories. I think 3 in total there. So Netflix is a major player, and this to me is a sign that it's going to be considered a major studio soon, especially with the Disney-Fox merger looming. So the MPAA already has an arrangement with all 6 studios. Take out Fox, slip in Netflix, and then all of a sudden we got 6 again. Yeah,
that's the question for you, Jeff, too, is that now that Fox is about to be acquired by Disney and Disney absorbs all those assets, do we have our 6th major studio player once again in Netflix?
I mean, it certainly feels like it. I mean, even though Netflix doesn't necessarily have its own gigantic lot, like it is actually, a lot of its productions are shot on these other lots because they have empty sound stages, like Paramount. I don't really know what it means for Netflix to join the MPAA. Okay, so their movies get rated. Maybe a part of it is protecting themselves. I mean, when you think about it, what movies are a greater risk of being pirated than Netflix movies, since they're available in your home?
Right, and that's what the MPAA does, in addition to telling you what your kids can and cannot see, is that it handles a lot of the copyright and trade issues that studios play into, and that costs about $15 to $20 million a year per studios to be able to handle something like that.
Right, which is nothing to Netflix.
Lump fee, right? Is it nothing for Netflix, or is it something for Netflix? Because again, Netflix, as far as a production budget goes, they're throwing money everywhere. I still don't know what their bottom line looks like, but you're right, Jeff. In the grand landscape of their greenlighting all these movies, all these original productions, $15 to $20 million, that's couch change, we think, for Netflix.
Honestly, and I think Netflix could go a long way towards just the industry's piracy efforts and whatnot. Like, I think that the industry could probably learn a lot from Netflix, and they certainly have good tech teams, so maybe they can develop something with the MPAA to help the rest of Hollywood.
I think they did that before. Wasn't there some sort of coalition between some of the streaming services where they had arranged something to combat piracy?
I see. No, I
believe so. I don't remember the name of the organization that they created, but I'm pretty sure there was something out there.
Well, it's interesting you bring up a coalition between the streaming services that may or may not have happened a year, 2 years, 3 years ago versus what's happening today with Netflix possibly joining the MPAA. Hasn't Netflix always been seen as the outlier, as the rogue, if you will, in Hollywood? So does this mean that Netflix is now ready to play ball with major studios, or is this the early signs of Netflix letting the other major studios know you're going to start making movies our way and not the other way around?
I think they've been playing ball. Like, they have the deal with Paramount, where Paramount is going to be supplying films for Netflix, the same way sort of A24 is going to be doing for Apple. So, I think everyone knows that Netflix is not going away. They're the elephant in the room. Whether they'll stay the elephant in the room with Amazon and Facebook and Apple, like investing more in content, that remains to be seen.
bit.
I think this is a sure sign that they're trying to kind of dig their feet into the ground to make sure it stays that way. Because, you know, in a way, I also view this as, I don't know if prestige is the right move, but I kind of want to say a prestige move where they're kind of solidifying themselves as in play with these 6 entities that we've been talking about for how long already? I mean, you think of a Hollywood movie and you immediately think of one of these 6 studios, and we're just at this turning point where all of a sudden one of these major studios is going to be Netflix because so many hot properties are coming out of their original production department at this point.
Does it help or hurt the average viewer that the movies could potentially now come with ratings? That you could have a rating for something like Bird Box or something like Triple Frontier, where you see an ad for Triple Frontier that looks like a movie that is a hard R.
It seems like it could only help. Also because nothing in this article addresses Netflix's goals in terms of theatrical distribution. I know we had that other story break today about certain theater chains barring Roma from their Best Picture showcase because of arrangements between, or lack thereof, of arrangements between Netflix and these theater chains. So I don't really know what their plans are in terms of getting their movies on the big screen, but if it's a matter of browsing through Netflix and having the availability of an MPAA rating instantly before you push play, I would think that would only help people, especially people who are sensitive to certain types of content, and also parents making sure their kids are watching the right stuff.
I think they're irrelevant. I don't think that parents check ratings. I don't think that they think too much about ratings. I don't have kids, so
I was going to say,
maybe it's a little bit different, but I just can't. I can't see my friends who do have kids being like, "Oh no, you know, Timmy can't see that because the MPAA rated it PG and he's only on G movies." Like, I think each parent kind of makes up their own mind at this point, and there's enough information out there where they know what to expect in these films, whereas maybe 20 years ago, you know, parents really didn't know what they were dropping the kids off at.
Sure, but you're talking about, you're referring to your friends that you were friends with before they had kids, and I mean, anybody out there knows once your friends have kids, there's slight changes happen. Slight changes in their personality tend to happen. They get a little more protective. So maybe if they're talking with you, having a couple pops, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't care what he watches," when it's actually you're presented with the possibility of little Timmy or little Janie watching Bird Box or watching Triple Frontier, you may say, "Wait a minute, let me see what that's rated before I let you check it out."
I mean, I don't have kids either.
She's got a cat.
Yeah.
I'm the stepfather
I have
of
a cat.
dog.
Dewey's allowed to watch whatever he wants. I am the worst. So many people tweet at me, especially when it comes to horror movies. You know, my kid's first getting into them. Do you think this one's okay? Don't ever ask me, because I'm going to say yes to everything.
Right, because we were watching that stuff
Exactly.
when we were kids. And I think that that's how it is for a lot of parents who are now our age or whatever, in their mid-30s. They sort of want to treat their kids the same way that they wish they had been treated when they were children.
Yeah, but the fun isn't in your parents letting you see it. The fun is in seeing it despite your parents not letting you see it. That's where beer tastes better before you're 21. Okay, maybe
it doesn't taste good at all, really.
Don't drink, kids. It's bad for you. Parenting tips from the Sneider, Jeff Sneider.
That's terrifying.
Before we get to the Oscar nominations that came out early this morning, I didn't wake up for it. We're going to get to the box office results, the weekend that was, and that saw Glass taking the top spot, as many people predicted. As some people didn't predict, didn't do quite as well. The analysts were looking at upwards of $50 million for the opening domestic take. It pulled in $40.3 million at the box office, and that was the top spot. Number 2 is The Upside with another $15 million to its haul. Aquaman still chugging with $10 million. At number 4, how about a hand for Dragon Ball, ladies and gentlemen? Everybody loves Dragon Ball Z. You talk to people on the street, they're nuts about DBZ, and Dragon Ball Super Broly came out, $9.8 million just this weekend, and so now it's made a total of $20.2 million. So big props to Funimation, Danny Fernandez, Emma Fife, and everybody else who loves DBZ out there so much. At number 5, rounding out the top 5, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, another $7.5 million to its total haul. Now, almost $160 million domestically on a budget of $90 million. That's why that animation looks so nice. So, Jeff Sneider, what was the biggest story at the box office to you, the parent in the room?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're right, even though I don't want to talk about it. It is Dragon Ball Z. Anytime a movie can kind of come out of nowhere to crack the top 10, let alone the top 5, I think it's pretty noteworthy. I mean, yeah, Glass did well, but had the benefit of a huge marketing spend. And I don't think it's really much better than the Split opening. And I think the Split opened on fewer theaters and with less marketing budget. The budget was lower on that. So as much as I love Glass, I think that, the bad reviews did hurt it a little bit, and maybe they left a little something on the table. But I don't think Dragon Ball Z took the audience away, but still an impressive accomplishment for that film.
Well, yeah, I was looking up the Split and Glass because I just remember Split doing better, but yeah, Split $40 million as well, and actually a little shy of what Glass took in, Perri, because of word of mouth initially. I think is why Glass got up there, is because everybody loved Split, and there was such good favor for M. Night Shyamalan going into this year. But then I think a lot of the critic reviews, I think a lot of the fan indifference, maybe the Rotten Tomato meter plays into the fact that Glass was a little short of expectations.
I feel like even though a lot of the critics were negative on it, myself included there, I still had my 3-day prediction at like 55 million. And if you had asked me how much I would have predicted last month when we were getting those long range predictions, I saw ranges between 60 and 70. So when a movie for 3 days winds up landing at about $40 million, that's a pretty big disappointment just compared to those early projections, because the budget of this movie is $20 million. That $40 million start is very, very good for them from a financial perspective. Curious to see how it legs it out, though, because I think it's got something like a B cinema score, whereas Split had a B+. And the funny thing is, some of the articles that I was reading had looked up the Unbreakable cinema score. I think it was, I had it written down, a C. Ooh. A C for Unbreakable. Of all.
History,
isn't that crazy? Kind. That I can't understand at all.
I'm real curious what the Sunday numbers look like, because frankly, we had the best day of football that I can remember.
Not for every town necessarily.
Not for every town, but
very entertaining.
These were great games, regardless of who you were rooting for. So I imagine that the Sunday number was impacted. I
imagine a lot of Saints fans actually saw that game and went right to the movie theater to just escape reality for a couple hours. I don't think PI should be reviewable necessarily, but maybe put an extra ref on the field, because that was atrocious. Getting back to DBZ for a minute, Perri, because I want to get your take on this too. This is shocking to me simply because I was aware that Dragon Ball Super Broly was coming out in theaters in some capacity because of friends and people I know in my life, but I did not see, to Jeff's point, a lot of, if any, marketing for this movie, but it shows what a hardcore fan base they pack in there, because everybody who's a fan of DBZ knew this movie was coming out.
I feel a little stupid because you guys know how obsessed I am with checking box office numbers. So sure enough, last week on Monday and Tuesday, I was busy looking at the ticket pre-sales, and it was high. It was at the top of the list for every single hour, and I'm thinking, it's going to make a good deal of money. Sure enough, it opens with, what was it? Something like $5 to $7 million day one.
I think day one was like
maybe?
$9 million or something.
Was it that high?
Yeah, 7 something.
So
like that.
it opens up that big. I had the chance to readjust my weekend predictions, but I opted not to, because I assumed with a movie like Glass coming out and some big contenders still fighting for big money at the box office, I thought it was just going to be super front loaded. I thought it was going to make its money, and that's probably why they released it on Wednesday. Make its money on Wednesday and Thursday before the hot new release comes out, and then it'll drop off. That is not what happened at all, and that's quite the opening.
The upside is another good story, in terms of the box office. Like, I did not expect this movie to be doing as well as it did, let alone to have that kind of hold in week 2. I know it was the holiday weekend, and Kevin Hart, has certainly performed well over that weekend. But yeah, it's Bryan Cranston in a wheelchair. I just didn't see this coming.
There's so much around Kevin Hart right now in particular, and he's done such a amazing promotional tour, just in sheer amount of shows that he's popped on and podcasts and the like, just talking about the Oscars controversy, but also gives you a platform to talk about this new movie you have coming out with Bryan Cranston that I think a lot of people wanted to see. They have indeed checked that one out in droves. So pretty good weekend at the box office, even if it wasn't good for Perri Nemiroff's overall track record in prognosticating the box office.
You know how much that disappoints me.
You'll get back on.
I know. I know.
The right side of the ledger very soon, I'm sure. All right, let's talk about it. It's the Oscar day. So you wake up super early. You see all the nominations announced by a round of applause. Anybody actually wake up early enough to...
My alarm
was
went
up
off
pretty
at-
early.
My alarm went off at 3:30 in the morning
3:30. Why?
because I was lucky enough to be on ET Live this morning, and I had to be there by
okay.
5. And
You gotta be-
it takes the ladies a little longer to get dressed than
I
you
get it,
guys.
I get
Not
it.
only do you have to wake up to watch the ceremony, you have to wake up even earlier to be somewhere to watch
Yes.
it. And then you got to drive and you got to choose. That's it.
Fair
You know what?
makeup
I
and
am
everything.
exhausted. It was totally worth it. This is my favorite time of year, and going from Critics' Choice Awards to Oscar nominations and through to the actual Oscar ceremony, the biggest grin on my face. I love this.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I'm not usually a huge fan of Twitter. It can be the bane of a lot of people's existence from time to time. But
Not mine.
if you're like me, waking up at 9:15
You make it that
a.m.
way for
today,
others.
I checked Twitter and I got everything I needed to know about the Oscars in 2 minutes. And then you start talking about the surprises, the snubs, the things we did not expect to see. And the Oscars is never short on controversies, on, oh, this person should be in, that person should be out. So I wanted to throw it around the horn here real quick and start with you, Perri Nemiroff, because you woke up so early. We want to catch you before your nap. What's the biggest snub in your
Not
opinion?
napping. I'm going to the gym after this.
Oh my gosh. Your day
Iron
exhausts me.
I got to get in one more CrossFit class before it's off to Sundance, where I'm basically just not getting any
It's
exercise
too
and
cold
just
exercise
freezing.
in Park City.
That's what you
Exactly.
think you're not going to be getting exercise. You're going to be getting exercise. Trust
Cross
me.
country skiing.
But I hear if
gonna be huffing and
my
puffing.
boots get soaked on day one, I'm screwed.
That's true. Definitely wear 2 pairs of
Oh
socks.
boy, yeah. Apparently, I have to go home and pack as well. So we're doing snubs and surprises. I'll get the snub out of the way first. That really bothers me, and this one really upsets me. I think this is actually the worst snub of the entire ceremony, and I can't for the life of me understand why this happened. How was "Won't You Be My Neighbor" not nominated for Best Documentary? And then on top of that, Three Identical Strangers too, because those two movies plus Free Solo plus RBG, really, I thought those were sure things. I thought those were getting those nominations, with that 5th spot likely going to Minding the Gap. But above all else, the fact that "Won't You Be My Neighbor," something that was a major surprise at the box office, something that is just packed with all the good feels when we really need them, and it wasn't honored at this year's Oscar nominations.
Well,
I don't understand it.
This category always seems a little fishy, the best documentary. But in years past, I mean, I can go back to the early 90s when Hoop Dreams got robbed of even a nomination. Life Itself, the Roger Ebert documentary that everybody, you would assume voters in Hollywood would be aware of, that did not even get nominated. So there's something going on with the best documentary category.
Something's up with it, and whatever it is, I wish I could figure it out so I could fix it, because that's crazy. But on the bright side here, my surprise is seeing Yalitza Aparicio nominated for Best Actress. So this was another category where I was sure that I had 4 out of the 5 spots pegged, nailed. It was going to be Olivia Colman, Glenn Close, Lady Gaga, and who am I forgetting? Melissa McCarthy. They were going to get the 4 spots. Who was that 5th spot going to go to? And I figured with the double SAG nominations for Emily Blunt, she had a good chance of getting that. And we haven't really heard all that much about the cast in Roma. A lot of it's been all about Alfonso Cuarón, and he deserves the spotlight, but his cast is also phenomenal too. So it's nice to see that her name was on that list this morning. I'm so happy for her.
Yeah, I just don't know who you take out and put Emily Blunt in. I thought Emily Blunt was fantastic in A Quiet Place. I can't take any of these performances.
That would have been for
out
Mary
and put
Poppins.
in-
Right.
A Quiet Place would have been supporting, but one
Then I'm
way
definitely not
or
taking
the
it
other, I do think that these 5 names that are in there should have been
Yeah.
in there above Emily Blunt.
Okay. Jeff Sneider, your snub
Well,
and
I
surprise. of the
agree
Oscars.
with Perri that the Mr. Rogers documentary being snubbed calls for some kind of investigation into the Academy, because that's crazy talk.
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
I was really disappointed that Timothée Chalamet missed out on a nomination. Again, I was devastated by his work in Beautiful Boy. I love that movie. I mean, it is a bit like a lead performance, similar to like Mahershala Ali or Richard E. Grant. So yeah, he had all the screen time. He had these big dramatic moments. Like, I just thought he did a great job of showing us what addiction really looks like. And I was stunned when they passed over his name in favor of Sam Rockwell, no less, doing like a 10-minute impression of George Bush in Vice. Vice.
Yeah,
Give me a break.
that was an odd thing because you didn't hear a whole lot about Rockwell as far as being the performance in Vice, even in a supporting role to keep your eye on.
I think that's what makes it worse. I actually
He's
think
good, but
I love Vice, and I think Sam Rockwell is quite good. But the thought of passing on Timothée Chalamet and giving Rockwell that spot is a little nuts
And he
to
was
me.
he was nominated last year, right, for Call Me by Your Name?
Yeah, but the thing is, take Rockwell and Chalamet out of the conversation. I can't think of anybody else but Chalamet to fill that spot.
If you want to go for that own movie, I would say Steve Carell as Rumsfeld was more deserving than. And again, I thought Rockwell was great as George W. Bush, but I would put Chalamet in there over that in a heartbeat.
That would have been crazy if Chalamet had lost the spot to Carell.
That would have been really funny, actually.
And then, as far as surprises go, I got to say, there wasn't a single pleasant surprise for me. I don't like these nominations. I went looking in each category. Obviously, there are people I'm excited for. It's great to see Richard E. Grant nominated. He was very deserving, but that wasn't a surprise. So I guess the pleasant surprise that I saw was in fact, a snub. Burning in Foreign Language. That was not nominated, and I was happy about that because I wasn't a big fan of Burning and didn't get what critics were flipping out about with regards to that film.
So it was a surprise for you. You were pleasantly surprised that the movie did not get nominated.
Yes, exactly. I thought that it might have gotten in because people were going nuts for it. It wasn't one of my own predictions.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I'm a true Grinch.
Look, whether you look at A Quiet Place or you look at something like You Were Never Really Here, or anything that kind of upsets your mood watching it, if it's a horror thriller or just a psychological exploration, I think the same can be said for Hereditary, and for whatever reason, Toni Collette not getting nominated. Now, again, it's a packed field. It's hard for me to take anybody out of the Best Actress category, but man, Toni Collette was just phenomenal in that movie. So, and I'm not just talking about the Oscars here. I think that the entire award season, she's gotten a little bit of a snub for whatever reason. And this is so political, the way that movies create their Oscar campaign. So maybe Hereditary either didn't have the backing or didn't play as hard as they should have or as they thought they could have. But I think Toni Collette certainly deserves more recognition than she is getting for Hereditary.
Now that you bring up Hereditary, and we were just talking about Won't You Be My Neighbor, and then if we toss 8th Grade into the mix, and we have Sundance coming up, isn't it crazy how none of the movies that popped at Sundance actually made it? Actually, were able to do the long run and get a nomination.
That's a great point, Perri.
Wow, Perri and Sneider canceling
these are all films that opened early in the year, too.
So why even go? Why are you even going then? I mean, none of these movies are going to be talked about to the Oscars.
Just because a movie doesn't get an Oscar nomination doesn't mean it's not a fantastic movie.
We can still enjoy movies.
You can enjoy anything that makes you happy.
I totally forgot about that, which is why I do think it's a nice surprise having Paula Polikowski get nominated for Cold War. Like, again, is it going to be a film that's going to take leaps and bounds because of this nomination? Possibly. And you can't say that for a lot of movies where it gets on so many more people's radar than it would have otherwise. So I think that's nice. I feel bad for Bradley Cooper or Barry Jenkins. Sure, I think Barry Jenkins over Bradley Cooper slightly, but again, I think this is a nice nomination for him, and I can't cry tears for Bradley Cooper not getting nominated for Best Director, because Bradley Cooper gets to wake up every day, look in the mirror, and be like, oh yeah, I'm this. He's going to be just fine. Plus, the movie got nominated for Best Picture, so I have a weird feeling. I think Roma's going to take Best Picture, because I do want to get y'all's Best Picture predictions real quick, too. I think Roma's going to take Best Picture, but if it doesn't, I think A Star is Born, and it does something similar to what happened with Argo, where Ben Affleck, a lot of people thought got snubbed from Best Director, but then he ended up getting to take the stage when the movie won.
At this point, I am stuck in a little bit of a three-way tie in my mind with Roma, A Star is Born, and then thanks to that PGA win, Green Book. So those to me seem like, I guess, the group of frontrunners. But again, like we did on For Your Consideration earlier, if I had to pick just one, right now I'm leaning towards Roma.
Okay, it's a vote for Roma, a kind of vote for Roma, sort of vote for Star is Born with me, Jeff. Who's taking Best Picture?
I think it's going to be Green Book.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think Green Book is just obviously a better movie than Roma. Like, the filmmaking in Roma is maybe more admirable, but at the end of the day,
obviously a better movie in a subjective
obviously, it's
sport.
just like so obvious what the better film is.
I think it's obviously more of a feel-good movie.
Again, that goes back to my theory as expounded on FYC, that I think that they will go for a feel-good movie this year.
Okay, well, you mentioned FYC, and FYC, For Your Consideration, had a special Oscar nomination event this morning. morning that you guys can check out right now on Collider Videos channel. Subscribe right here if you haven't already, and check out all the FYC episodes. They've had a lot of interviews with people who actually got nominations this morning right here in this studio. So check out the whole back catalog as you ramp up to your own awards experience whenever the event happens, hostless though it may be. We talked about Green Book possibly getting the win, and it did get the win at the Producers Guild Awards over the weekend. That means that Green Book has now won an award that 20 of the previous 29 give-outs of this award have gone on to mean Oscar glory. So only 9 times in the history of the Producers Guild Award has that movie that won not gone on to win the Oscar. Now, it has happened recently. So Shape of Water last year, that won the Producers Guild, the PGA, and it won the Oscar. However, La La Land and The Big Short, 2 recent films to win the Producers Guild Award, did not go on to take the top prize at the Oscars. But Jeff, it seems like your horse has pretty good odds after winning the PGA.
Yeah, again, as soon as I saw this in Toronto, I was like, wow, this just screams Best Picture to me. I'm actually surprised it won the PGA award, because I don't know like what the backstory is behind this, aside from Nick Vallelonga writing a script about his father. Like, Graham King has a much better story in terms of willing, the Bohemian Rhapsody to the big screen, and there are a few other movies that I think have a better backstory behind them. So I was surprised to see it win at the PGA, but I think as far as its Best Picture hopes go, like the Academy, they know how the mud gets slung in these during award season, and I think that they just vote for the work that is on the screen. I think that's why Bohemian Rhapsody got a Best Picture nomination. They ignored all the Bryan Singer stuff, so I don't think that the Academy is going to hold anything that Vallelonga tweeted or that Farrelly may have done 20 years ago. I don't think that they're going to hold it against them.
Okay, Perri Nemiroff, you feel the same way? Does Green Book now have its odds stacked in its favor because of this W?
There's a lot of people in the Academy, though, and I think it would be too broad of a claim to say nobody is going to have that cross their mind when they're ticking off who they want to win on each ballot. So I do think it could maybe still make a little bit of a dent there, but the PGA win no doubt changes the way that I'm looking at Green Book, because before I did not think it was a Best Picture frontrunner, and now I have it pretty close to the one that I am predicting to win. But this surprised me as well. I didn't really think it had a shot of winning the PGA win. When I filed my final predictions, I went with Black Panther. I thought that was going to be the big surprise, and then all of a sudden for Best Picture, that was going to change the course of the conversation for Black Panther. Basically, swap in Black Panther instead of Green Book, and that's the grouping of 3 that I would have had today, and that's what I was thinking when I, first saw the nominations for the PGA. It just seemed like, what you said, Jeff. There were so many others that kind of created, not even just a better narrative, but seemed to be, from a producing perspective, even more worthy of that honor.
Because the PGA respects money, and Green Book hasn't made that much of it yet.
That too, and also just the scale of certain productions and certain producing feats that had to be achieved in order to make a movie happen.
Doesn't that speak to how good of an actual movie Green Book is? The fact that it can overcome the fact that its box office isn't that great and its backstory is basically terrible and all that stuff. Like, doesn't that speak to how much people actually like this movie?
I can't really say no to that, because in the last couple of weeks, I went from thinking that this was only going to get nominations to this thing making waves. PGA, talk about that Golden Globe win too. Even though the HFPA doesn't overlap with the Academy, that set the tone for the movie right there.
The Academy, as liberal as it is, and you're absolutely right about that bias, and they may be like, oh, this movie's racist, it's problematic, whatever. I know Hollywood. I know the people in it, and I know that they hate being told what to do by bloggers. Okay, so if the blogosphere is like, oh, how could we vote for, Bohemian Rhapsody? How could we vote for Green Book? That is the first thing that they're going to do, is do it because they like to make up their own minds.
You would like to hope that somebody votes based on how they actually feel, and not, well, I'm seeing a lot of this on Twitter, so I'm going to go the opposite way.
That's how people think. That's how prognosticators are weighing in on the race.
Then that would have sunk Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse's chance chances. However, that took the animated feature for the PGA. I'm going to be shocked. That's the one where, like, if I'm sitting down and I'm watching the Oscars and I'm like, man, this is weird with no host. What happened to the Muppets? And then they do the best animated feature and they don't say Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. My jaw's going to hit the floor.
There's
I'm going to
no
be
way.
shocked.
Yeah,
There's no. That would be one of the biggest upsets that could possibly happen at this
Yeah,
point.
I mean-
like I said with Green Book at the Golden Globes, I think Golden Globes did the same thing for Spider-Verse, where it set the tone, and from here on out, it is Spider-Verse's award to lose.
All right. Well, we could talk about the Oscars all day, but that's FYC's job. So we'll let For Your Consideration handle it. Like I said, check out the episode today of For Your Consideration when they went through all the Oscar nominations pretty early, like right after they were announced. And Perri got back over here from her other gigs this morning. You've just been running around all over the place. So.
I like talking about Oscars.
Yeah, you deserve. I hope you get some sleep on the plane. It's even not that long of a flight, so.
I probably will. I got a couple more episodes of You to watch. That's a priority. Are you not
Me?
watching You? The show You.
no.
Oh,
Not-
okay. I thought you were just watching me, Perri.
Yeah, definitely a hard no on that. But flatter yourself all you want.
Good to know that your opinion
gets
of
enough of me at
yourself
work.
in line with your sports team has not gone anywhere. He's still the best in his own mind. Congrats to Tom Brady. Also, talking about the letter number 9. 9 times going to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
It's pretty impressive. We move on to our next story, and that is a Shazam TV spot. Get a whole lot more of Shazam. Get some aged up Billy Batson and his equally alliterative sidekick Freddie Freeman. The Double F got a lot of new footage in this ad. I saw the ad. I don't need any more. Just tell me on Shazam. The movie looks fun. I'm going to go see it. Does this ad do anything for either one of y'all?
I wonder what your answer is going to be.
I mean, no.
Not enough Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali.
I'll check out a free screening of this, but
what a guy.
I am not enthused about it. I don't care about Shazam. I think the casting is kind of ridiculous. I'm curious about Jack Dylan Grazer. I liked him the most in the It movie. So,
What's the ridiculous casting you speak of?
what do you mean, the guy, Zach Levi?
You just don't think Zach Levi's right for Shazam? I'm just asking. I'm not.
No, and I've heard Warner Brothers has questioned that their own decision as well.
Okay, Perri Nemiroff.
I'm so curious now. Who would you have thought would have better suited that role?
I don't know because I don't care about Shazam, but I know
Alright.
one thing, and that is that Zachary Levi is not a movie star.
Well, look,
He's the definition of television.
the big news here, Perri, for me, is that Jeff has kindly offered to attend a free screening
did.
of Shazam if somebody gives him a ride to the theater. So, is that where you are on Shazam, or are you a little bit higher?
I drive a teeny tiny Mini Cooper, so you will not fit in my car. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Shazam. I am a fairly big, I guess, Zach Levi fan, particularly because I am just coming off of watching season 2 of Marvelous Miss Maisel, and I thought they incorporated him in that really well, and I like what he did with the role that he was given. But here in particular, I'm also a big fan of Jack Dylan Grazer because I love what he did with his character in it. Eddie's one of my favorite characters in the book, so I thought he really brought him to life on screen really well. And based on everything I've seen from the movie thus far, it seems like the two of them could have a really great, charming back and forth to sustain a full feature. And I love the big spin on this. I love the idea of a kid, especially a kid who might have comic books in his life and just like the dream that any kid has of becoming a superhero. I feel like it doesn't matter how old I get, that kind of concept will always appeal to me.
Well, I'm not huge on going to see Shazam. I am excited about David F. Sandberg directing this movie. I want to see what he is able to bring to the forefront and if that can overcome any of the perceived problems Jeff might have with the movie, or if that accentuates what Perri already likes about the ad material she's seen. Going to remind you guys at the end of this show, we're going to save some time for your live Twitter questions. Go ahead and start tweeting us at Collider Video. Use the hashtag Collider Movie Talk. But one more pretty cool story to get to, and that is that Edgar Wright is giving some details, not many, but some, about his next project. And he also gave an update on Baby Driver 2. More on that in 1 second. Edgar Wright was telling Empire Magazine that his next project is a psychological horror thriller. Don't expect any Oscar nominations. A psychological horror thriller that is set in London. His inspiration for the role, in his words, were a combination of Nicholas Roeg's 1973 classic Don't Look Now and Roman Polanski's 1965 film Repulsion. The film is set to have a female lead, and Wright has said that this is a somewhat personal film in nature simply because of its basis where it's set in London. He mentioned that a lot of the Hot Fuzzes of the world, things like that, they had some personal influence as far as geography from where he came up, and And as a guy who spent a lot of time in London, now he gets to have a love letter or some sort of letter to that city as well. This is pretty cool. I'm excited about Edgar Wright's next movie. Psychological horror thriller. I'm all on board, Perri.
I'm into it. Edgar Wright is one of those filmmakers where it doesn't matter what he attaches himself to, I'm going to want to see it. But I don't entirely know what to picture. Even with those references, it still feels like it could go all over the place or just be something, wildly unique that we'd never really seen before. More so than anything, I'm just glad that this means that a Baby Driver sequel is even further in the future, because he's one of my favorite filmmakers. I have faith in him. If he thinks Baby Driver deserves a sequel, okay, you work on it and prove me wrong. But I love that movie so much, and I love where it ended. I was so satisfied, and I don't necessarily need to continue Baby's journey. So the fact that I could just live with that one movie for a little longer and know that there's not a sequel messing with it is just making me happy.
Well, because the prospect of a sequel has been on the table really since the first movie ended, Jeff, from Edgar Wright's own mouth. He's going to be asked about it, and Empire asked him as well, and he said that he actually has a first draft of Baby Driver 2 finished, and that the film introduces a whole new swath of characters alluding to the high body count from the first one. So if you're a Baby Driver fan, if you think that there is room for a sequel, time to get excited, I think.
Who knows? I mean, this is one of those questions where you ask a director and then the director has to say something because he can't say nothing.
He didn't have to say
really,
he's got a
what
first
does he
draft
say?
of it.
Guys,
Yeah.
Baby Driver 2 says it takes the story further. Whoa.
He's got a first
That
draft.
is
That's the news to me.
Okay, whatever. I liked Baby Driver just fine. If we get a sequel, great. I'm sure it'll be very well considered. If not, I'll be able to live. I'm more interested in this psychological horror thriller. I like Edgar Wright. He's good at playing with genre. This is a genre that has kind of fallen by the wayside. And let me just throw this out there, Mark Ellis. Okay, in May 2017. Edgar Wright was asked on Twitter, who's one actor or actress that you would love to work with in the near future? And he answered, Anya Taylor-Joy. And that is, in fact, who I have heard could star in this London psychological horror thriller. She was also going to be the lead in Gunpowder Milkshake, and Karen Gillan ended up getting that role a couple of months ago. So I wonder if Anya Taylor-Joy has something brewing.
Can I ask a dumb question
That makes me
doesn't
excited.
really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yes.
Is she British? Because there's so many performers that do American accents very well, and I just don't know she's British.
I actually just looked this up because she was in studio for Thoroughbreds. It's
She's British Argentine.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's what it
okay.
is. And
She
it's Anya
born-
Taylor-Joy. That's how it's pronounced.
Born in Miami. I don't know. She just has a very expressive face. Edgar
she's
Wright
great.
seems to be a fan. Yeah, I hope that it works out because I'm
She's
very
no
curious what
stranger
that would
to
look like.
psychological horror thrillers.
I
either.
haven't seen her give a single poor performance. I think some of the movies she's been in aren't necessarily at her level, but she stands out big time in anything she's in. That potential collaboration there makes me 10 times more excited for a project that I was already excited about.
All right, but you're not that pumped on Baby Driver 2 just yet.
I'm hesitant. Doesn't that happen with any movie that you love, that they're going to remake, reboot, or continue in a sequel? You never want another movie to even somewhat tarnish a movie that you loved before.
Yeah. I thought Baby Driver, the first one, was great. I thought it was entertaining, so I'd be up for more adventures in that universe, should we get them. But again, if I don't get it, I'm not going to... The sun's still going to come up tomorrow. Going to be okay. Going to remind you guys that you can check out, like I said, all the cool FYC coverage of the Oscar nominations and Sundance. It's coming up. Some people are even packing tonight and flying out to go check out the festival in Park City, Utah, where Oscar hopefuls screen for the very first time. A lot of movies they've never heard of screen, and then all of a sudden they become phenomenons. It's going to be a good time in Bob Redford's backyard. Perri Nemiroff, I know you're very excited to go there. What can we look forward to in the way of coverage here on Collider?
I am so pumped. So the large majority of the stuff I'm going to be doing there is interviews. I'm going to split all of our Collider interviews with our own Steve Frosty Weintraub, so I'm going to get to talk to a whole bunch of cool people. And then, of course, my focus is the midnight lineup, and we have so many good things. A new A24 movie after Hereditary's debut last year. This year, they have a movie called The Hole in the Ground, and I am super pumped for that. A Lupita Nyong'o starring zombie movie. I mean, did I just sell you on that without even knowing anything about it?
Yeah,
Lupita Nyong'o in a zombie movie.
I want to see Us. That looks zombie-rific in itself. And then another one.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Keep an eye for me on the Ted Bundy movie.
Oh, I believe I'm seeing that.
With Zac Efron?
Extremely Wicked.
What are you hearing about it, Jeff? You made a face.
Hearing not great things, and that was my most anticipated movie of the festival. And
I care less about him. I care more. I just want to know how James Hetfield is as the cop that pulls him over.
Yeah. That is a good question.
All right. Rock on. We're going to do some live Twitter questions, and we're going to call it a day. We'll do a couple quick ones here. Good one from Kristen Offrey. He says, after Glass, would you prefer M. Night Shyamalan scale it back on his next project? For Chris personally, he says, I'd like to see another $5 million from him, like The Visit was. I think that's the right call.
He took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say I want him to do another movie along the lines of The Visit. The Visit was such a nice surprise, and I don't see why he couldn't do that again.
I think you should. I think that's the right play, Jeff.
I really like The Visit. I don't think that M. Night demands these huge budgets. He doesn't need it. The thing about him is the writing. So I think maybe not $5 million, but if you give him another Glass type budget of $20 million, that's as high as I'd really go.
And you loved Glass.
I did.
You did not.
No.
So one could say y'all are split on Glass.
Ha ha ha.
God, I'm tired.
Thank God my spirit's unbreakable.
One more question that we're going to call today. Luis E. De La Pena is going to close this out, and he says, hey, entire Collider staff, are you going to make an Oscar pool or scoreboard? Maybe the winner gets a title shot at the Schmoedown. I like the way you think, Luis. So an Oscar pool scoreboard, what are we doing? Just because sometimes I get left out of these because, I sleep until 3:30 p.m., so what's going on as far as the studio betting for the Oscars? Now, I'm not going to win it, but I still want to be involved.
We can take charge,
You have
Perri.
like an idea in your head. I can already tell.
Well, I think that we should do a straight-up Oscar pool and come up with a cool,
Someone
gift for
should
whoever.
invent fantasy football for Oscars. Like where you start at the very beginning of the season.
We can figure that out, Perri. I'm going to work on some. We're going to develop something, and then we're going to license it to the rest of the world.
I'm in.
Okay, so in lieu of that, we're doing an Oscar pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, how much is too much for your Oscar pool?
I'm pretty confident in myself, so I'll go as high as these guys will.
I think $20 is just a good entry point for everything in life. If we want to do 10, keep it to the cost of a movie ticket. It's really less than a movie ticket here. 10 should be fine. But if you can't come up with $10, don't be in the Oscar pool. Why are you even working here?
After losing $20 in the playoff challenge that we did, I feel like I should maybe scale it back with the betting. But I like to win big.
I'm ramping up the betting on FYC, guys. We put another bet in on top of the Glenn Close bet. Me and Mantz are putting our money where our mouths are. I feel like we may end up splitting, and it may end up being nothing anyways.
I got a fair way to do this. Okay, if you happen to be a panelist on FYC, you got to put $20 into the Oscar pool. If you're an everyday schmo like me, you got to put $10 in. That's fair. I have never won an Oscar pool in my life.
It's not fair because then really you could just go on Gold Derby and copy and paste our predictions.
Then we would tie. What's the issue?
I'm surprised you put all your honest predictions up on Gold Derby. I'd take a little off that.
I don't know. I take pride in being part of that group. I'm not going to lie.
I wouldn't want to give it all away.
Sandbagging.
I'd take a little heat off.
God, you are never.
This is why he goes places and I don't. I just set up these obvious roadblocks for myself.
All right. So, Luis, to answer your question, we're going to work out the whole Oscar pool thing. But I personally like my idea of if you're in the Oscar, no, $20. If you're just me, $10, maybe $5. Well, I'm not winning. I'm just contributing whatever I have.
We couldn't take your money, Ellis.
I'm not gonna. I've given everybody in the studio plenty of my jack over the course of my tenure, but you're probably going to get 10 or 20 more bucks out of me. Whatever it is that day, I'm going to have a couple Coors Lights, and I'll be happy to give over the award. Never to see it again. Okay, that does it for us here on this episode of Collider Movie Talk. We will be back tomorrow with a brand new episode at 4 p.m. in the PT. But before I say goodbye to Perri, where can all the kids find you and follow you when you are in Park City?
I'm gone for so long. I'm surprised. I'm getting so sad about leaving everybody. But I will be in Sundance for the next week and a half, and you can find all my coverage on Collider.com. Hopefully videos will be popping up pretty quickly on Collider Quick. Also, Twitter and Instagram at Nemiroff. I'll post lots of pictures and fun stuff.
All right, Jeff Sneider.
At the Sneider on Twitter and Instagram. And since Perri's going to be at Sundance, that means you guys get more of me.
It's not been confirmed nor denied. You guys can catch me at Mark Ellis Live on Twitter. I got the New York show this weekend. You can go to trivia.sd Schmoedown.com to check out where you can watch the Schmoedown live. We're going to be doing it in Brooklyn, and you can watch it like a pay-per-view event. You pay a couple bucks, you get to watch a movie trivia Schmoedown live in a theater in Brooklyn. And then next weekend, I am in Phoenix, Arizona to do stand-up. I hope it's warmer than Park City, Utah. You guys can get tickets at markellislive.com. Throw it to the Y to say goodbye. Have a great one, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with more news and maybe Jeff Sneider. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.